investigation and scrutiny of this licensing application? All you have to ask is yes or no.
No, Congressman.
All you have to ask
the
is yes or no.
OCC is an independent entity, and I would know, Congressman,
I take that as a no.
You traveled to Venezuela to lobby
I take
Hugo
that as a no.
Chavez.
Work for the American people.
Maybe
Don't
you're
be
going-
a
maybe you're
cover-up
going to
for a mob.
Maybe you're going to
As
see
long
your
as he
friend
talks,
Nicholas
you talk.
Maduro
I will.
in
Gentleman
Brooklyn
is not
prison.
recognized, Mr. Bessent.
Whoa, whoa, did you see that? Welcome back to the channel, Patriots. What we just watched was Congressman Gregory Meeks going off on Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. The mainstream media is calling it Meeks going nuclear, but this didn't look like a calculated strike. It felt more like a desperate meltdown from someone who knows the old guard is losing its grip on the system. Meeks stepped in like the moral authority on finance, dredging up decades-old scandals while echoing the same eat the rich rhetoric tied to the Bernie Sanders wing. It's the same playbook. When the policy argument falls apart, the volume goes up. We're about to watch the full exchange, but keep your focus on Bessent. He's the one staying composed while the chaos unfolds around him. Let's get into it.
Secretary Bessent, if I'm not mistaken, you were working in the financial service industry during the late 1980s, correct?
I was.
Thank you. And well, I'm wondering, do you recall or you're knowledgeable of the Keating 5 scandal back then?
Yes, sir, and I will point out that I was...
I don't want to...
No, I will point out that
Limited time, I have limited time.
I identified...
The gentleman
my
is from,
time.
Mr. Secretary, it's the gentleman
I
from
just
New
asked
York's
you a
time.
question. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows, who doesn't know, that the Keating 5 scandal involved 5 U.S. senators accused of pressuring the Federal Home Loan Bank Board to expedite and give more consideration to the case of Charles Keating, Jr., who ran the California-based Lincoln Savings and Loans. It led to a 14-month investigation unveiling how 5 U.S. senators and staff ended up with more than $1 million in contributions, 4 trips to the Bahamas, and all expenses paid stays at resort hotels. Following the scandal, the industry saw sweeping regulatory changes that was launched by then-President George H.W. Bush. Now, Mr. Secretary, I'm sure you can agree conflicts of interest and improper influence by U.S. elected officials over bank regulators weakened supervisory independence and ultimately impose massive losses on consumers and taxpayers. I think that we can all agree upon that. And as we know, the basic lessons from the post-Keating reforms still applies today when the Office of the Comptroller of Currency, the OCC, is deciding to get a bank charter. I think we can stimulate that. Now, Mr. Bessent, as our nation's treasurer, I'm sure you also know that a foreign-linked investment firm tied to the United Arab Emirates government quietly bought about half of the Trump family's crypto company, World Liberty Financial. And at the very same time, the President of the United States was dealing with that country on foreign policy. Now, Eric Trump, the president's son and co-founder of World Liberty Financial, said, and I quote, "I'm not going to get into who the investors are, but I've got some pretty meaningful investors," end of quote. Lack of transparency. And it didn't end there. When Trump fans brought the tokens, they thought they were getting the deal of a century. But what they didn't know was that only Trump and his sons had the sole power to decide who can sell the token and when. Today, the price of the token has fallen over 50%, and the Trump fans who bought the token are now begging to get out. Now, I'm not making this up. I'm not making this up. You can see it for yourself on the World Liberty Financial Discussion Forum, yourself, Mr. Secretary. So this is no longer just about a shady crypto deal or a possible gift when a foreign-linked investor is putting hundreds of millions of dollars into a company controlled by the president's family, and at the same time, this president is conducting foreign policy with that country. You know what that causes or creates? It creates a national security concern. So, I'm not going to ask much of you, Mr. Secretary. I just want to know whether you will commit today to pause and heighten the scrutiny of any bank charter or licensing application at the OCC connected to the World Liberty Financial until all of these conflicts of interest and foreign influence reviews are completed and shared with the United States Congress. All I need to know is, will you halt it and do a complete investigation and scrutiny of this licensing application? All you have to ask is yes or no.
No, Congressman, the
All you have to ask is yes or
OCC
no.
is an independent entity, and I would know, Congressman,
so that- I take that-
in
I take that as a no.
2006, you traveled to Venezuela to lobby
I take
Hugo
that as a no.
Chavez on behalf of
I
your
take that
donor,
as a
on
no.
behalf of your
You
donor.
do not want to answer
Gentleman's
that
time is
question.
expired.
110
I take
years
that
in
as a
jail
no.
For a $7 billion
Gentleman's
contract.
time
I'm
is
asking you to
expired.
do your
Ask the
responsibility
Secretary.
as Secretary of the Treasury.
Into a Venezuelan
You do not.
Mr. Meeks,
Will you?
your
I'm
time
just-
has expired.
You
Well,
cannot
tell
erase
the
what you
witness,
did in
He's the one that went
2006.
past your time, Mr. Chairman.
No, and
he did not answer my question, and he wouldn't pass the
Mr.
time.
Meeks. He had 6 seconds left to try to answer your question, and the
It was
time
a yes or
expired.
no. It was a yes or no answer. I asked him, will he? No, was that
Gentlemen,
yes
the
or
chair
no?
recognizes
OCC
the
is an
gentleman.
independent
Stop
agency.
Mr.
covering
Bessent.
for the president.
Yeah, well,
Stop
Mr.
being
Bessent.
his flunky.
yeah, and
Gentlemen.
He's talking to me. I'm responding
your
back to him.
2006 trip to Venezuela.
Neither
Why
one-
don't
Stop
why don't you
covering
tell
for
your
the
Secretary
president. Don't be a
that?
flunky. Work for the American
Secretary,
people.
Mr. Meeks.
trip to
Mr.
Venezuela?
Meeks.
Work for the American people.
And maybe
Don't
you're
be
going-
a
maybe you're
cover-up
going to
for a mob.
Maybe you're going to
As
see your
long as
friend
he talked,
Nicholas
you talk.
I
Maduro
will.
in
Gentleman is
Brooklyn
not
prison.
recognized, Mr. Bessent.
All right, let's break down what just happened, because that was a full-on deflection clinic from Gregory Meeks. Did you notice how he spent a huge chunk of his time digging into decades-old controversies instead of addressing what's happening right now? This is 2026, and instead of focusing on current economic policy, he leaned on the past, because there wasn't much to pin on Scott Bessent's performance as Treasury Secretary. Then came the hit on World Liberty Financial. That's been a major point of attack in the hearing, with Meeks raising concerns about alleged conflicts of interest and foreign investment ties. But the strategy felt familiar. Shift the focus away from policy and turn it into a broader political narrative. Meanwhile, Bessent is sitting there trying to address Treasury business while the questioning keeps circling back to crypto, foreign influence, and hypotheticals. At one point, Meeks repeatedly demanded a straight yes or no answer, escalating the tension into a heated exchange. And then came the turning point, when Bessent pushed back and brought up Meeks' past, flipping the pressure right back on him. That's when things really boiled over. Meeks started raising his voice, even calling Bessent a flunky during the confrontation. That moment tells you everything. When the exchange shifts from questions to accusations and shouting, the debate isn't about policy anymore, it's about control of the narrative. Through it all, Bessent stayed measured and didn't match the tone. Love him or hate him, he kept it focused on his role, while the room got louder around him. Zoom out, and the bigger picture is clear. This wasn't really about numbers or oversight. It was about competing priorities, political pressure, and who gets to define the story coming out of Washington.